3 years in my wife's affair, the system that brought me here reappeared, telling me I could finally go home. For the last 10 days, I stopped fighting, stopped tearing us apart. I let her spend her nights with her new obsession. I let her give away the things that once meant the world to me. The day I left was my birthday. She burst in with him, knocking my cake to the floor, pinning me against the window. She accused me of trying to harm their child. When did you become so vicious? I laughed, too tired to explain. You're right. I'm just that vicious. So, I said, looking from her to him, you two have a good life? And then, as she watched, I leaned back and fell from the 19th floor, ending my life in this world. When the long-dormant system flickered back to life, telling me I could go home, I had just finished another screaming match with Chloe. She'd just come home from a tryst with Julian, the college student she was bankrolling. She saw me lying in bed and slid in behind me, her lips warm as they trailed along my neck. I sat bolt upright, instinctively shoving her away. Chloe, you might not feel dirty, but I do. She froze for a moment, then touched her face with a self-deprecating smirk. She yanked me out of bed and slammed me in front of the bathroom mirror, her fingers clamping around my chin, her eyes laced with venom. You're disgusted by me? Leo, look at yourself. Do you see any trace of the man you used to be? I stared at my reflection. My hair was a mess, my stubble was patchy, and the dark circles under my eyes looked like bruises. The optimistic spark that used to define me was gone, replaced by a hollow, gray emptiness. Fine lines had crept onto my face, erasing any hint of my former vitality. For a split second, an image of Julian's face flashed in my mind. Youthful, fiery, his eyes burning with a defiant mix of desire and ambition. So what, Chloe? I scoffed, leaning against the wall, my own eyes stinging. Is that your excuse for cheating on me? She moved closer, standing on her toes, to gently trace the corner of my eye with her thumb. I've told you 100 times, I'm just having fun. When I get bored, I'll come back. Leo, I've always loved you. Nausea churned in my stomach. A wave of uncontrollable disgust, pain, and fury washed over me. I grabbed a cologne bottle from the counter and hurled it at the mirror, which shattered into a spiderweb of cracks. Get out, I roared. Just get the hell out. After she left, I stood barefoot on the cold marble floor, staring out the window at the massive digital billboard across the street. It was a new campaign she'd funded for Julian, a full-body modeling shot of him smirking down at the city. I let out a bitter laugh. Clashes like this had become our routine over the last year, a painful ritual that had devolved from heart-wrenching agony to numb despair. I was never supposed to be in this world. 8 years ago, I was sent here on a mission to save the tragic, broken protagonist, Chloe Sterling. Back then, her father's affair had bankrupted the family company. Her mother had taken her own life, and she was drowning in debt. Her eyes were empty, dead to the world. Then I arrived. On a bright, sunny morning, I walked up to that fragile, defeated girl. I moved into her cramped studio apartment with her, and together we survived on ramen and dollar pizza, slowly chipping away at her debt. Why are you so good to me? She asked me once, her voice barely a whisper. I smiled and took her hand. Maybe it was a directive from on high. She looked down, her voice low. Then you're the best gift heaven has ever given me. The day my mission was completed, she must have sensed I was going to leave. She held on to me from behind, her eyes red, and didn't sleep all night. My resolve softened. I turned and held her close. Chloe, I whispered, I'm not going home. After that, the system vanished. For 5 years, it never reappeared. And in those 5 years, Chloe cheated on me. It started in the 3rd year of our marriage. She started sponsoring a young, beautiful male model named Julian. I still remember the day I found out. She came home drunk, collapsing against me, and mumbled, Leo, have you put on weight? I almost laughed. I worked out religiously. My muscle mass was toned, and my weight hadn't changed in years. What was she talking about? Later, I looked through her phone. The man she was keeping, Julian, was a 6-foot-tall wisp of a boy, all sharp angles and pale skin, the polar opposite of me. And that name she'd whispered, had it been Leo or Julian. The details of that day are a blur now. I just remember a roar in my ears as my world went black. Chloe knelt before me, sobbing, telling me it was a mistake, a momentary lapse for something new. 3 years of dating, 3 years of marriage, giving up my entire world for her. All of it led to this. I couldn't accept it. I couldn't let either of us off the hook that easily. So, by silent agreement, we stayed married. But our love was a rotting thing, a beautiful rose infested with worms. We couldn't bear to throw it away, yet sickened us to hold on. Her repeated betrayals led to endless cycles of fights and resentment until we were both exhausted, our hearts turned to ash. It was death by 1,000 cuts, slowly slicing away every last piece of love we had. So when the system finally awoke from its long slumber and spoke to me again, I answered without hesitation. System, I regret it. I want to go home. Host, I did warn you. The storyline after the mission's completion is unpredictable, including Chloe's change of heart. However, given your previously outstanding mission performance, I can grant you a one-time privilege and reopen the pathway home. There's just one condition. The pathway will open in 10 days. Exhaustion settled deep in my bones. I nodded. Okay, you have 10 days remaining in this world. The departure countdown is now active. The system went silent again. The house returned to its dead, suffocating quiet. I wiped the tears from my eyes and started packing. I didn't want to leave a single trace of myself behind in this world. I gathered all my clothes, stuffed them into trash bags, and threw them out. I took down the wedding photos of me and Chloe that lined the hallway walls. Then I took out my wedding ring. When I proposed, I had knelt on one knee, holding a modest half-carat diamond that cost me everything I had. My voice cracked as I asked her, "Chloe, will you marry me?" She fell into my arms, weeping. "Leo, you are the only light in my dark life. I will be faithful to you, and only you, for the rest of my days." That small diamond, though imperfect, had held the purest, most intense love Chloe and I had ever shared. I wore it every day until I saw her on the arm of Julian, a 5-carat pink diamond glittering on her hand. After that, my ring was relegated to a drawer. Now, I used that ring to smash the glass of our wedding photos, shattering them one by one. Finally, I looked around the home that was so full of our history, and a strange sense of peace washed over me. I had struggled in this toxic marriage for 5 years, clawing and fighting against the inevitable. Now, at last, I could leave. It was a kind of liberation. The next morning, I went downstairs. The lights were dim. Chloe was sitting on the sofa, sipping some kind of herbal wellness tea, her expression unreadable. "Where are the wedding photos?" she asked coolly, her voice stopping me in my tracks. Her phone buzzed incessantly. It was Julian, sending her a picture of himself holding a new watch she'd just bought him, a satisfied grin on his face. "Babe, was I good last night or what? Love the gift. I'll make sure to be even better for you today, winky face." She saw me notice, but made no effort to hide the screen. "I'll put them away," I said calmly, walking past her to the kitchen to pour a glass of water. She smirked, stood up, and pulled a Van Cleef and Arpels watch from her pocket. She grabbed my wrist and fastened it on me. "Still mad?" she murmured, leaning close to my ear, her voice a low hiss like a snake. "Here, a little apology gift. It looks good on you." She whispered, "Leo, you will always be my husband. No one can replace you. Not even Julian. Why get bored of him? I'll come back to you. We can even have a baby then. How about that?" I pushed her away, my expression cold. I reached out and brushed a spot on her collar, the lingering scent of a man's cologne clinging to the fabric. I forced a sarcastic smile and walked away. Chloe had been pregnant once before. She didn't even know it at the time. I was still obsessed with her loyalty then, still clinging to a desperate hope. I staked out the hotel where she was keeping Julian, staying up all night in my car. In the morning, I saw her emerge, her arm around him. His hand rested possessively on her hip as he guided her into the passenger seat of her car. Moments later, the windows fogged up as they started going at it right there in the parking garage. My hands clenched the steering wheel. An uncontrollable, gut-wrenching rage took over, and I slammed my foot on the gas, plowing my car into hers. The baby was lost in that collision. We hadn't slept together in months. It was obvious whose child it had been. She slapped me across the face hard and forced me to kneel and apologize. That was the 4th time I'd caught them together. Chloe watched me leave now with a flicker of surprise, but still no real alarm. She just nodded thoughtfully and left the house. She didn't come home for 2 days. During that time, I calmly watched the tabloids fill with stories of her and Julian's latest escapades. I didn't call. I didn't text. Instead, I started liquidating the assets we had accumulated over the years, the real estate, the jewelry. The system had told me I could exercise my conversion rights. Any wealth I accumulated in this world could be transferred to my home world. In the first 2 years of our marriage, before everything went wrong, we had worked tirelessly and built a small fortune. Those were our honeymoon years, when our love was at its peak. I had transferred my company entirely to her name. In return, all the properties she bought were put in my name. She said she felt guilty for all the hardship I'd endured for her, for pulling her out of the abyss. She said only by giving me financial security could she feel at peace. In the end, she didn't give me enough love, but she gave me more than enough money. Enough to live lavishly for the rest of my life, even after I went home. With 5 days left on the countdown, I drove out of the city. There was still one property I hadn't sold, a secluded estate in the Hudson Valley. It had been her anniversary gift to me. In happier times, we spent all our holidays there. The house held a special meaning for us. I was going there now to get the deed and give it to the realtor. As I pulled into the private drive, I realized I hadn't been back in 2 years, not since the affair started. But the place looked different. The small garden was now meticulously planted with rows of white roses. Confused, I got out of the car and used my key to unlock the door. Before I could turn the handle, the door swung open from the inside. "What? You want more already? I just wore you out." It was Julian. He was shirtless, leaning against the doorframe, his initial surprise quickly morphing into a smug, mocking expression. His eyes raked over me, full of contempt and victory. In an instant, I understood everything. Chloe had moved him in here. "This is my house," I said, my voice dangerously low. "I'm giving you 5 minutes to get your clothes on and get out." I pushed the door open, but he blocked my way, meeting my gaze without a hint of fear. "Sorry, but Chloe gave this house to me." "Gave it to you? When was the title transferred?" "You think the owner would know about it? She's just letting you crash here for a few days. Don't get confused and think you're the master of the house." Julian's face flushed red, then pale. I didn't have time to argue with him. I pulled out my phone and called Chloe. Her mess, her problem. On the other end, Chloe let out a dismissive scoff. "Leo, it's just a house. What's the big deal if I let the kid stay there for a bit? Don't go bothering him. If you make him cry, he's a handful to deal with. And another thing." I didn't hear the rest of what she said because Julian suddenly grabbed my wrist, his voice dripping with provocation. "Mr. Vance, I hear you and Ms. Sterling were together for 3 years before you got married. Well, I've been with her for 3 years, too. What do you think my chances are of becoming the next Mr. Sterling?" He leaned in, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "And I'll raise the stakes. I'll add the baby in Chloe's belly to my side of the bed." Through the phone, I could hear the clinking of poker chips and Chloe's distracted voice. "There was a limited edition artist sculpture up for auction the other day. I bought it for you. It'll be a birthday gift." She was still trying to placate me. "Keeping Julian around is just for fun, like a pet. If you're really that upset, I'll tell him to move out." I let out a cold, trembling laugh. "Chloe, did you hear him? You're pregnant with your little boy toy's child. Congratulations, you're going to be a mother. You're finally getting your wish." The line went dead silent. For a long time, there was nothing but static from the other end. When Chloe finally found me, I was just leaving a cemetery. I had 3 days left. Julian's words had brought back the memory of that other child. The one I had initially thought was mine, the one I had poured all my hopes and dreams into, only to realize the timing was impossible. These past few days, I had visited the child's small grave, leaving a few pieces of candy. I knew it wasn't mine, but the feelings were impossible to sever. If none of this had happened, we might have had a beautiful child of our own. I hadn't gone home. I hadn't answered any of Chloe's calls. It was as if I'd vanished. So when she saw me, she grabbed me, yanking me into her car without a word. Inside, her hands gripped the steering wheel. She gave me a long, deep look, her voice sharp with impatience. "I'll handle the situation with Julian." She once told me, "A child should be born from true love. I will only ever have a child with you, Leo." But now she was having one with Julian and was still trying to play the part of the devoted wife. The irony was suffocating. I folded my arms and stared out the window. What does it have to do with me? The kid's not mine, anyway. Her gaze turned icy, but then she laughed, a short, sharp sound. She grabbed my wrist, forcing me to look at her. "Leo, are you telling me you really don't care at all?" The corners of her eyes were red as she stared at me, as if terrified to miss a single flicker of emotion on my face. "And where have you been the last 2 days? Why haven't you answered your phone?" But my face was a blank mask. I just looked back at her, my voice barely a whisper. "Chloe, I'm going home." The car filled with a dead, heavy silence. After a long moment, she let out a cold laugh, as if I'd told the world's most hilarious joke. Her tone was dripping with arrogance. "Home? Where are you going to go? What home do you have? Besides me, do you have anyone else in this world?" I watched her quietly, a self-mocking bitterness rising in my throat. So this is what the end of love looks like. Vicious words meant to wound. I took a deep breath. There was no point in saying another word. I got out of the car. Chloe slammed her fist against the steering wheel and sped away. Another bitter, unresolved ending. In the last 3 days, she grew more brazen. Sometimes she would bring Julian home for the night, the sound from their room echoing through the house. I would just quietly close my door, not even bothering to ask. The final day before my departure was my birthday. That morning, Chloe left early without even a glance in my direction. I spent the entire day alone, methodically burning every photograph of us together. Then, I waited for midnight. That evening, I bought myself a small cake and stuck a single candle in it. I turned off the lights, closed my eyes, and clasped my hands together to make a wish. I wished for a smooth return home. I wished that Chloe and I would never see each other again. But before I could blow out the candle, the front door burst open. Chloe entered, her face pale, her eyes cold. Behind her was Julian, his face contorted with rage. Before I could react, his fist connected with my jaw. "Leo, I know you don't like me," he snarled. "But Chloe is innocent, and so is the baby. Why do you have to hurt her?" I touched my stinging cheek, a bitter laugh wanting to escape. Honestly, I had no idea what he was talking about. I hadn't gone anywhere all day, but I knew the confidence behind that punch came directly from Chloe. She stood to the side, one hand on her stomach, a cold smile on her lips. "Leo, isn't this a bit much? You already killed one of my children. Did you have to send someone to crash into my car and try to kill the second one too?" Her words were like a razor blade, slicing open old wounds. But I didn't have time to argue with her anymore. The system was reminding me that I only had a few minutes left. I walked past Chloe and slapped Julian across the face. It was payback for his punch and a little reward for being the other man for 3 years. If I didn't hit him now, I'd never get another chance. Julian looked stunned. As the reality of the slap set in, his eyes reddened with manufactured hurt. Chloe rubbed her temples and, with a sweeping motion of her arm, yanked the tablecloth off the table. The sharp sound of shattering plates and glasses echoed through the vast apartment. The cake, along with everything else, smashed onto the floor, a perfect metaphor for my last 5 years of marriage. She strode toward me, her 4-inch heels bringing her just high enough to look me in the chin. Beneath her perfectly sculpted brows, the old warmth was gone, replaced by a cold, detached cruelty. "I told you I would handle this. Why did you have to provoke us?" Her voice was laced with disgust. "Leo, when did you become so low, so vicious? Or is this just another one of your pathetic acts to get my attention?" Behind me, the window was wide open. The 19th floor wind swirled around me. At that moment, the clock struck midnight. The system's voice filled my head. "The pathway home is now open. Upon completion of your death in this world, host, you may return to your original world." I let out a soft laugh and pushed Chloe's hand away. My voice was gentle. "You're right. I'm just that vicious." Chloe frowned. I pointed at Julian and smiled at him. "So I'll step aside. You and your Julian can be happy together." Then as Chloe stared, her eyes wide with disbelief, I leaned back and fell from the 19th floor. 5 minutes later, a crowd had gathered on the street below. Police and paramedics had arrived, but they couldn't find a victim. There was no body. In fact, there wasn't a single drop of blood on the pavement. "Ms. Sterling, are you certain your husband jumped from the 19th floor?" A police officer asked her gently. Chloe just stood there, head tilted back, staring at the open window high above, her eyes red. The night rain began to fall, slicking her face. I saw him jump." She whispered to herself. "How could he be? What about other places? The second floor terrace. Has anyone checked that? Is it possible he landed on someone's balcony?" She spun around, grasping at possibilities. The officer shook his head helplessly. "Ms. Sterling, we've checked everywhere. There's no sign of him." The police were at a loss. Both Chloe and Julian swore they saw Leo Vance jump. Yet there wasn't a hair of him to be found. It was as if he had evaporated into thin air. Julian was deeply shaken. A living person had leapt from a window right in front of him. From that height, he should have been nothing but a mess. But he had simply vanished. Wrapped in a shock blanket, he shivered as he approached Chloe, putting a hand on her waist. "Let's go home. This is too weird. I'm scared." He didn't finish his sentence. A sharp slap from Chloe sent his head ringing, and he stumbled back. She stalked toward him, her face dark. Even as a woman, the aura of power she carried from years as a CEO was overwhelming. She grabbed his throat, forcing him to meet her gaze. "Who told you to hit my husband?" Tears welled in Julian's eyes. He bit his lip, looking utterly wronged. "You said you were bringing me here to confront him." "I said I was coming to back you up, but you walked in and punched him. I never agreed to that." Her grip tightened. Julian began to struggle for air. "Julian, if you hadn't insisted on making a scene about this baby, if you hadn't started all this tonight, Leo wouldn't have. I was going to terminate this pregnancy anyway. I only ever wanted to have a child for Leo." Julian looked at the woman before him, eyes bloodshot, face contorted with a rage so intense it looked like she wanted to kill him. He was starting to black out. With his last bit of strength, he pried at her fingers. Chloe, he choked out. You're still carrying our child. The name, Chloe, made her freeze. It was how Leo used to say her name, so gently. She snapped back to reality and released her grip, but the face she saw was not Leo's. It was Julian, red-faced and coughing violently. Chloe stood stunned for a moment, the chaotic scene around her fading into a blur. In a sea of faces, the only one she wanted to see was gone. The brutal reality crashed down on her again. 5 minutes ago, her Leo had jumped from their window right in front of her. He was now missing, presumed dead. Panic seized her. She stumbled away, a broken, desperate figure fleeing toward her car. In the car, she huddled in the driver's seat, her hands trembling as she lit a cigarette. Only after a long drag did her nerves begin to settle. She stared at her hand, the same hand that, in a moment of crazed grief, had nearly choked Julian to death. She suddenly remembered another rainy night, many years ago, when that same hand had been wrapped around another man's neck. Her own father. She was 19. Her father's affair was exposed by the media. The family company's stock plummeted. The man took his mistress and fled the country, leaving her and her mother with a mountain of debt. Overnight, the company went bankrupt, and her mother, in despair, killed herself. One night, she cornered the man as he was trying to escape for good. Her eyes were red with fury as she choked him, losing control. It was Leo who had thrown himself at her, grabbing her hands. Chloe, no. Don't do it. You'll ruin your life. She could still remember the sound of the torrential rain that night, so loud it drowned out everything but Leo's desperate screams. Finally, she let go. Leo held her, his arms trembling as he pulled her into a tight embrace. He convinced her to let go of her plan for revenge and start living again. Later, with his help, she found evidence of her father's illegal business dealings and sent him to prison herself. She took over what was left of the company and built it into an empire. Leo was there through it all, networking for her, starting his own ventures to bring her clients, helping her conquer the market. They made a lot of money. She finally married the man she loved more than life itself. The cigarette burned down, the cherry singeing her skin. She snapped out of her memories, her eyes already wet with tears. It was late when Chloe got home. She had spent hours at the police station giving statements. All she had to show for it was a missing persons report. Without a body, the police couldn't issue a death certificate. For now, he was just gone. Ms. Sterling, after 2 years, you can petition to have him declared legally dead. Chloe collapsed onto the sofa, laughed bitterly, and tossed the report aside. Declared dead? He's playing some kind of game with me. This is all just a ploy to get me to come crawling back. She looked down at the floor, at the remains of the cake she had destroyed. The cold wind still whistled through the open window. Everything was a stark reminder that what happened was real. Her Leo had really jumped from that window. A deep, unshakable chill crept up from her feet, wrapping itself around her heart. She couldn't stay in the living room a second longer. She fled to the bedroom. Lying in bed, her mind replayed the image of Leo, smiling at her as he fell backward into the night. A sharp, splitting pain shot through her head. It was so intense, she had to press her fists against her temples to bear it. The migraines had started years ago, back when she was drowning in debt, working multiple jobs a day, pushing her body to its limit. But back then, no matter how exhausted she was, she would come home to a small, run-down studio apartment and find him there. He was just as tired, but he was a warm, solid, reliable presence that made the hardship bearable. Their place was a dump. It leaked in the winter and was infested with roaches in the summer. It wasn't a real home, but Leo never complained. He made the tiny space feel cozy. They would lie on their thin mattress, her head on his lap, while he gently massaged her temples. One night, as he was doing this, she saw his hands. The hands that were once so elegant and clean were now covered in red, swollen blisters from the cold. Some were already festering. At that moment, something sharp twisted in her heart. She remembered holding his hands that night, vowing, "Leo, I swear, I will make sure you have a good life. I swear it." And she had. She had become a titan of industry. Her Leo had gone from a nobody to a respected businessman in his own right, her equal in the corporate world. They moved from the studio to an apartment, then a penthouse, then the estate. But somewhere along the way, lost in the glitter of wealth and temptation, she had lost herself. Even when Leo found out about Julian, when they fought until they were both raw and screaming, she didn't think it was a serious problem. She was just playing. She'd been so repressed for so long. She wanted to feel everything, to experience a sense of reckless abandon. All the other wealthy people she knew did it. Rich women kept handsome young men on the side to amuse themselves. It was normal, wasn't it? Their husbands were probably doing far worse. None of them were getting divorced or driving their spouses to suicide. She could understand it. As long as she wanted it, they could have been together forever. Forever and ever. How did it come to this? How did it come to him being gone? Chloe seemed to have forgotten. She had forgotten that the whole reason she had fought so hard to climb out of that pit was so she and her Leo could be together forever, to grow old in love. When I woke up again, I was in my own bed. My head still throbbed faintly. Outside, a light rain was falling, just as it had been when I jumped from the 19th floor. My heart ceased. I threw open the window, but the view was of a familiar old neighborhood street, bustling with people buying street food, the air thick with the smell of cooking. A wave of relief washed over me. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. Your bank account has been credited with $80,000,000. $80 million. I gripped the phone, a slow realization dawning on me. It wasn't a dream. It was all real. 8 years ago, I'd had a workplace accident, a fall from a great height that damaged my spine and left me a quadriplegic. That night, the system appeared for the first time. It said if I could complete a salvation mission, it would reward me with a healthy body. I agreed, and so began my 8 years with Chloe Sterling. Now, I was back in my own world. Not only did I have a healthy body again, but I also had an immense fortune. In this world, there would be no more endless fights, no more lonely nights crying into my pillow, and no more of that suffocating, drowning marriage. I let out a long, slow breath, my eyes welling up, the feeling of freedom. It was so good. My life in my original world didn't change drastically. The only real difference was the lifetime supply of money in my bank account, giving me complete financial freedom. Outside of my quiet work life, I started traveling alone. Sometimes I went to the misty, rain-soaked landscapes of the Pacific Northwest. Other times, to the vast, lonely deserts of the Southwest. I savored every new view. I bought a modern house on a lake. The floor-to-ceiling windows in my bedroom looked out over the sparkling water. On days I wasn't traveling, I'd curl up in the hanging chair in my bedroom, soaking up the sun and reading a book. My cat would often jump into my lap, purring contentedly. No one would come home and give me the silent treatment. No one would scream at me or grab my face and force me to look at the monster I become in the mirror. Over these 2 years, I slowly rebuilt myself. I nurtured myself back into the confident, easygoing Leo the first used to be. Everything was good. A world without Chloe was nothing but blue skies. 2 years later, the memories had almost faded, until one night, after drinks with some old friends, I came home and collapsed in a bed, hazy from the alcohol. The system appeared again. At first, I thought I was drunk, hearing things. But then a familiar white light materialized in front of me. Host, I apologize for the intrusion, but I have no choice. Because I broke the rules to grant you your return. The protagonist, Chloe Sterling, has never found your body and cannot accept your death. As her obsession deepens, the world she inhabits is on the verge of collapse. If her world is destroyed, I, as its system, will be permanently erased. Please help me. Go back one more time and completely extinguish the last of her hope. You won't have to complete a mission, and you won't be staying permanently. You'll only have 5 hours. When the 5 hours are up, no matter the outcome, I will bring you back home. The system showed me clips of Chloe's life over the past 2 years. She went to work, she ran her company, but her temperament had become dangerously volatile. Her employees lived in constant fear. The vase in her office had been shattered and replaced dozens of times. On the rare occasion a business partner mentioned my death or tried to set her up with another man, she would fix them with a chilling stare and inform them, stone-faced, that I was not dead. They would flee in terror. Afterward, she would ask her assistant if she had received any messages from me that day. I watched in silence. I didn't feel a shred of pity, only a calm emptiness. But I heard the desperation in the system's voice. I thought about how it had been my only companion for 8 years in that other world. How it had risked everything to bring me home just because it heard my desperate plea. It wasn't a friend, but it was something close. After a moment of consideration, I agreed. My farewell with Chloe had been abrupt, fueled by years of bitterness. I had wanted my death to be a final, brutal act of defiance. It was no wonder she couldn't let it go. This time, I would sever the connection for good. I would force her to accept the truth. I opened my eyes. I was back in her old home. It was late. The house was dark and empty. 2 years had passed, and I'd almost forgotten this place. But every detail was a sharp reminder that I'd lived here for 8 years. Nothing had changed. The house was preserved exactly as I'd left it. Even the wedding photo I'd smashed with my ring had been repaired and rehung on the living room wall. Except now, my side of the photo was just a blank white space. I walked into the bedroom. My pillow was still next to hers, as if I'd never left. My favorite book was sitting on a nightstand where I always kept it. I picked it up. The pages were yellowed and the edges were curled, marked by someone who had flipped through it countless times. The system had told me that after I left, Chloe spent every sleepless night clinging to this book. As I had vanished, so had all my belongings, my clothes, my photos. This book, which she had bought for me, with my notes and highlights in the margins, was the only physical proof I had ever existed. As I stood there, lost in thought, I heard the front door open. It was Chloe. In 2 years, her striking features had sharpened, grown colder. The darkness in her eyes mirrored the grim winter night outside. She kicked off her heels, entered the house, and didn't even turn on a light. She didn't see me in the bedroom, in the dim living room. She sat on the sofa and lit a cigarette. She graduated from the light menthols she used to smoke the cheap, harsh brands. The ember glowed in the dark. When the cigarette burned down, she picked up her phone and scrolled through her messages, her brow furrowed. She used to ignore my texts when she was out, leaving me on read. Eventually, I stopped texting. I stopped waiting for her to come home. She covered her face with her hand. 2 years, Leo. You're really cruel, she muttered. Not even a single message. How long are you going to keep up this act before you finally give in? She impatiently shut off her phone and stared out the window, her eyes vacant and dead. Suddenly, the phone rang, shattering the silence. She glanced at the caller ID, hesitated, then answered. Ms. Sterling, this is just a reminder that your husband has been missing for 2 years now. You are eligible to come to the police station and obtain a death certificate. Chloe's face tightened. A storm brewed in her dark eyes, and the temperature in the room plummeted. My husband is not dead, she hissed. None of you ever found his body, and you have the nerve to tell me he's dead? That's a trick I will never fall for. Her hand tightened on the phone, her nails digging into her palm. If anyone ever calls me again about getting a death certificate, I'll come down there and get one for them. She slammed the phone down, throwing it across the room. Her fist crashed against the glass coffee table, the sound of cracking echoing in the silence. She bowed her head, her voice a hoarse whisper. Leo, how long are you going to punish me before you come back? I watched her performance from the shadows, a sense of grim amusement washing over me. Come back for what? To watch her parade Julian around? To feel the shadows of her betrayal grow until they swallowed me whole? After a long moment, I stepped out of the bedroom. My voice cut through the darkness, cold and clear. Why are you still lying to yourself, Chloe? At the sound of my voice, Chloe's body shuddered. She turned her head slowly. When she saw me, she froze, staring for a long, silent moment. A light began to dawn in her eyes. She approached me cautiously, as if afraid of waking from a dream. Her hands reached out, trembling, until they finally wrapped around me in a tight embrace. She buried her face in my neck, inhaling deeply, her voice raw and muffled. Leo, you scare me so much. They all said you were dead, but I didn't believe them. I wouldn't believe them. See? I waited, and you finally came back. I pushed her away, my expression flat. Chloe, I am dead. Don't you remember? 2 years ago, right in front of you, I jumped from the 19th floor. I went down with my blessing for you and Julian, while you watched. Her long lashes trembled. She looked lost, as if the reality was finally sinking in. 2 years ago, I really had died in front of her. 1 second, I was speaking to her softly. The next, I was falling backward into the abyss. No hesitation, no regret. I simply vanished from her world. Chloe's face turned white as a sheet. Her hand shook as she grabbed my shoulders. No, that's impossible. Leo, you're standing right here. You came back. After you left, she pleaded. I terminated the pregnancy. I cut off all contact with Julian. I never saw him again. Leo, can't we just go back to how things were? Please. I shook my head, my gaze calm. I walked over to the window where I had jumped, pushed it open, and felt the same cold night wind on my face. Chloe, do you remember how we met? 8 years ago, the system brought me here. I appeared out of thin air in front of a destitute Chloe. She had just lost her mother and been beaten up by debt collectors. She was standing on the edge of a skyscraper, 1 foot already over the side. I literally fell out of the sky and tackled her to the ground. Pinning her down, I looked at the lifeless girl beneath me and smiled. Don't you dare jump. I can help you. A flicker of life returned to her dead eyes. At the time, she was too lost in her grief to question where I came from. Now, as the memory resurfaced, a look of shock and confusion spread across her face. Chloe, I was never from your world. I came here on a mission to save you. When a mission was over, I was supposed to leave to go back to my own world. But I didn't. I stayed because I loved you. I stayed and married you. I glanced out the window at the twinkling stars. They were as bright as they had been on our wedding night. That night, Chloe had held me and promised, Leo, you saved my life. You rewrote my destiny. If I ever betray you, I hope I get hit by a car the moment I step outside. Leo, I will make sure you live a good life. I believed her. I gave her everything, my heart, my body, my soul. Later, she built her company into an empire and kept her promise, making me the glamorous husband of the great Chloe Sterling. I didn't even have to work anymore. I just had to wait for her at home. But our conversations grew shorter. She started staying out all night. In the end, I wasn't waiting for happiness. I was waiting for the headline announcing her affair with Julian. That was when the first crack appeared between us. In the agony of our constant fighting, that crack widened until it became an unbridgeable chasm. I was on one side, and she was on the other, never to meet again. As the memories flooded back, a look of pain crossed Chloe's face. Leo, I'm so sorry. You were always there for me, no matter what I became. You never left. I got too comfortable, too confident. That's why I wanted to go looking for something new. Back then, I could have anything I wanted. I suddenly resented the quiet, ordinary life we had. I want to try everything I'd never had, including other men. She lowered her head, her hands clenched into tight fists. I never thought you would leave. I thought, after 8 years together, that you were just a part of my life, maybe even a disposable one. But after you jumped that night, I never had another full night's sleep. She looked up, her eyes trembling, and reached for my hand. Leo, I was wrong. I was so wrong. I pulled my hand away sharply. Chloe, 2 years ago, when you shoved me in front of that mirror and told me I was old, that I'd lost every trace of my former self, you didn't hesitate for a second. There was no pain in your eyes. I will never forget the look of pure, unadulterated pleasure on her face as she whispered in Julian's ear. Nor will I ever forget the contempt and hatred in her eyes every time we fought. Those images, the ones that made me feel like a raving lunatic, are burned into my memory. A lover is like a flower. She watered me with the poison of her betrayal and infidelity, and I withered. Chloe's eyes were bloodshot, as if they were about to bleed. No, it wasn't like that. I was just angry I was caught up in the fight. I didn't know. Leo, I have only ever loved you. You say you never had feelings for Julian, that you were just playing. Is that the truth? You gave him money, you gave him your time, and you gave him your protection. If that isn't a kind of love, what is? You say you love me. So what is your love for me? Is it coldness? Arguments? Constant conflict? If that's what your love is, I don't want any part of it. She said she never cared for him, but she bought him cars and luxury goods without batting an eye. She took him to the doctor when he was sick. She called him over when she was scared of thunderstorms. And in every fight between us, she always took his side, protecting her precious boy toy. After all those years, all those unguarded moments, how could she say there was no affection? As my words landed, Chloe sank to her knees, sobbing uncontrollably. I glanced at the time. I had 1 minute left of my 5 hours. Chloe seemed to sense it, too. She saw me leaning against the window again and reached out a trembling hand, trying to grab me. Leo, don't leave me. Please don't leave me. The system's countdown began in my ear. Chloe, I came back for 5 hours because we were only truly in love for 5 years. We loved each other once, but we don't anymore. In some cosmic ledger, Chloe's 5 years of love had bought my brief 5-hour return. But that was all. There was no love left to sustain us for another second. The temporal gateway opened. I looked at Chloe one last time. Her tears fell on my hand, hot and scalding, just as they had been 8 years ago when her heart ached for me. Goodbye, Chloe. For the last time. Leo, no. With those final words, I vanished from before her eyes, leaving her to kneel alone in the vast, empty house, her cries echoing in the silence. After Leo was gone, Chloe lay on the floor where he had disappeared, staring blankly at the ceiling. 2 years ago, when he had vanished after the fall, she could still lie to herself. No body meant he wasn't dead. But now she knew Leo was never coming back. She would never see him again in this world. They had been together for 8 years. The most precious years of her life were spent with him. He had taught her to believe and love again, to learn how to love. Her life plan had been simple. Marry Leo, have a child, and live happily ever after. She had achieved the first goal, but fate had other plans. The love story took a turn, and the ending was nothing like she had imagined. All the beauty came to a screeching halt in their 3rd year of marriage. When that young model with ambition in his eyes threw himself at her, she had asked for his name on a whim. Julian. It was close enough to Leo. That night, she let him stay. From there, she did one inexplicable thing after another, until she looked up and realized they were past the point of no return. She remembered that she and Leo had almost had a child once, but she never got to feel the joy of being a mother. That child was lost because of her betrayal, a secret she had kept from him. Then Julian had told her she was pregnant again. At first, she was scared, lost, but the joy of a new life clouded her judgment, and she believed Julian's lie that Leo had tried to harm them. That momentary lapse in judgment had cost her everything. Later, when her head was clear, she realized it was all a lie Julian had concocted to secure his position. She panicked and terminated the pregnancy, hoping it would be enough to earn Leo's forgiveness. Julian had accused her of being cruel, of ruining his life. She had simply smiled down at him from her position of power. You should have known this was a possible outcome the moment you chose to be my affair. She did it all as penance, hoping the real Leo, hiding somewhere, would see how truly sorry she was. But after 2 years of waiting, her reward wasn't forgiveness. It was this final, soul-crushing goodbye. After a long time, Chloe crawled to her feet and slowly walked to the open window. She looked down. It was an endless, dark abyss. But her Leo had been so resolute when he jumped. Not a flicker of regret. She spread her arms and closed her eyes, feeling the wind whip around her. He had said that when he jumped, he would go home. If she jumped, would she get to see him too? A moment later, without any hesitation, she leaned forward and fell. She ended her life at the age of 26. With her death, the salvation mission for the protagonist, Chloe Sterling, was officially complete. The alternate world stabilized and began to run normally again. The system let out a long, low hum, and in a rumble of cosmic machinery, it began a new cycle.